in my view, very often the students are more situated to listen to their peers than to any professor you bring on board. We haven't done that as radical as I wanted because we haven't had the balls to do it yet. I would like the students to grade the other students formally. Like, if Auri must hate what I'm doing, he should flunk me, and that should be on my record. On the other hand, Aurima's grade should depend on his ability to grade me in a way so I grow. But we haven't really had the balls to do this, go as far as that, so we try to cushion it a bit. But we really say that we want to bring that real feedback into it because, and what we, I think, historically have been good at is to create that safe space so people dare to give sufficient feedback, because for us it comes from a good place. It is supposed to help people grow. And that, I think, has been very instrumental for why people get so much out of their learning journey. Before we open up the floor and all the stories that I didn't tell you, that all that I scrolled through, that will be for part 2 at one point in the future. I think we should listen a bit to Aurimas, because Aurimas is perhaps closer to some of your reality, coming from this part of the world perhaps. And maybe, I'm not entirely sure what you would like to share with this group, because you have been to Estonia before, I have not. But maybe what attracted you to the school? And what you got out of it, perhaps?
I'll get on the armchair so I don't go breaking my neck. What attracted me to school? So, hello everyone. What attracted me to school was friends who were very passionate talking about it. And I actually wasn't attracted for the subject because I didn't want to study business. I went to business management before, and I'm like, no, don't want to do graphs and maths and selling and finding this profit for the sake of profit. I didn't want to do group work because that's painful, and you all know it, especially if it's just left randomly, like it happens very often in schools and universities. But when I was invited to come and see the school, and they were really open, just like come and see and what is happening, and it felt very welcoming. The community was alive. I can tell you the feeling, when I was going up the stairs up, it had the pictures of every single student that was studying at that moment and had studied before. So you could feel the ownership of the school belonged to the students. You could feel it was cozy and playful, and it was still about the subject, and they were learning together. There was a terrace, community there, and I came on the day of exams. Just showed up randomly, and they're like, yes, if you want to see, just come here. And at the exam, it was first year, first semester exam. At the exam, there was a presentation. It wasn't like sitting in the circles, it was kind of round with the panel. I think there was a team leader, something, an expert from the field, and someone from the staff, like 3 people watching the exam, and observers. And the students, they preserved a real case they worked with. They went, those were the students that they worked with the co-working space in Bilbao. They went for 3 weeks to Spain. They developed new product ideas. They tested them out. They got feedback. They brought back, they prepared for exam. And when they were telling about it, it wasn't like theoretical things. What is a good co-working space, or the case study of blah, 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 Silicon Valley. They were like, we went and then we saw this and then we did that and then we tried this and this didn't work and we did that and then we learned this, and they used creative methods and they got questions and answers, and the energy was like, wow, that's relearning, like it's in them. And the amount of attention they got, quality attention from that panel, was the deep inquiry together to understand what they've been learning. It wasn't like judging, but into their experience. It was a conversation for 45 minutes. And I've seen bachelor and master's presentations before, where basically people read, and then, you know, I don't even know the scientific names, the people say what was wrong or bad, and then there's a professor fight between themselves. You get an 8, and then you finish. And I've seen, finish your 6 years. And I thought, this was first year, first semester. and the depth was so much bigger than I have ever seen. And I wanted to be part of that school. It's just simply like, I don't know what they're doing. I actually didn't have a plan to do business. I didn't have a plan to do project management or group work, but I want to be part of that community and understand how they actually do it. I wanted to learn about education and see how does this work, but they tricked me into projects and things, and I would say projects is a very good way to learn. So that's how I got hooked, and then I had all of that.
Well, maybe you should also say a bit of what you're doing today, since I know that you have stayed in the realm of education.
So since 2013, I was working as an education consultant. So I was giving workshops, and I was trying to see how the workshops and experiences that I got in Denmark, how they could contribute to Lithuania. I was working with Teacher Club in Lithuania. I was also one of the initiators of Art of Hosting in Education in Lithuania. We have started an NGO, 5 guys starting an NGO, living in the same apartment, working in the same apartment, having business meetings. That was quite a learning. I wouldn't recommend that. I learned about boundaries too. And I was also teaching at university later on in creativity innovation, and I just finished teaching in Sweden. But what I'm now eager to do is to open a hybrid of KAOSPILOT and the Danish Folk High School. If you know what it is, it's a residential concept. So you live for half a year and you try things on formal education. You learn about yourself, community, living together, working together, but mix it with the KAOSPILOT. That they still do projects, they work with local companies, maybe even municipality. Yay. So this is Lithuania that you see, and there is a place very close to Belarus border called Švenčionys and Švenčionėliai. No one has ever heard about it. It's impossible to pronounce it, but it has something spectacular in it. It has old buildings from 1863. Actually, the town was built because there was a train from Warsaw to St. Petersburg, and it was going from this to Daugpilis and then St. Petersburg. So they have those beautiful buildings which were empty, and some people that I know, they moved in there and they just started buying. They started buying apartments and places. Like in this house, you could buy an apartment for 2,000 euros. With 4-meter ceiling and so on, and the architecture company moved in and they started doing things. There was this is a train station, no, not here, somewhere here is a train station. They had a Humana shop, you know Humana, second-hand clothes. Now it has a new cafe and a fancy, nice cafe. Maybe half the size of this, but with the quality and style of it. So things started popping up there. With the ideas, it's only 4,000 people, but it has beautiful heritage, nature, and I thought, what about building a school there? Where did it go? But there's like a totally abandoned building, which was a depot of a train. So they were bringing the carriages to fix them. It's like all falling apart, but somehow the young people there, they have been developing an idea to make it a creative industry town, and more young people are moving in. It's 1 hour away from Vilnius by train, and in 6 years they have events, concerts, they have 30 young people who moved in there, and municipality just gives them full support. And I thought, what if you get, imagine 30 students living there residentially and working on projects and working with those restaurants and companies and architecture studio. That's a big help. Like imagine someone is doing events and concerts, and that's one guy responsible, but he can get the help of 5 students. Someone is doing a strategy plan with municipality, what it should look like or how to develop a square. and that could bring a lot of energy. And I see that the unique selling point is that it is a small village of 4,000 people. It's not Vilnius or Tallinn where so many young people, they become consumers. There's event and event and event and this and that, and there's nothing. You either make it happen or it's boring. So you have to make your own parties, your own events, your own things. And if one can facilitate this process and build the ecosystem and collaboration between the NGOs and startups and even municipality, the town can grow like really a lot, more and more. So that's our idea now. So municipality has bought the building, they put 150,000 euros into it, 3 million to renovate it. There's an investor who wants to build the accommodation site. I just mentioned to Trine, there's a water tower there, and it's a playground because it's like, I mean, you can play with it. I mean, you can buy real estate for 10,000 euros, put a couple years of energy and develop into something with new purpose. If it doesn't work out, you sell it as a real estate. But there's so much learning and the contribution is huge. People are hungry and they're ready for it, so just come.
Yeah.
So Švenčionėliai, if you haven't heard of it, a really beautiful town, many events and concerts there.
And the opening would be 24, 25 years, it would be great.
Yes, 24, 25, that's the opening. That's when the municipality has promised us. But you know, it's old building, cultural heritage, renovation, European money. So there can be some obstacles, but the intention is there and the community is there. Yeah.
On your webpage, you say that you're preparing youngsters for the world. And I don't know, I saw so much behind there, but how do you measure the impact that you have created so far?
Yes. It is a
And
good,
go and count it somehow or visualize it for us.
it's a very, very good question, and it's been debated, I would say, for the last 15 years. I remember when I took over as a principal, and the first presentation I've ever held about the school was for a lot of professors. And I did, as I thought that we were doing at KAOSPILOT, I talked about the future we envisioned. And then someone like you raised the hand immediately after I was done with presentation, and I said, we have heard about the school, this school's ambition for the future forever, but where is the results? No, and it's sorry, so it was just an interesting, because you're right. The ultimate way we measure is students. Because economical direct impact we have is microscopic. No one would notice if we disappeared from the city economically, financially. But in Denmark, we have been measured on a different set of criteria. First, ironically, we were measured according to unemployment. How much unemployment do we produce? Then that changed, that narrative changed and said, so how many people do actually have a job? Or how many are not a burden to the state in any particular way? And then around maybe 12 years ago, they started to shift focus on entrepreneurs. How many start something? And that is one of those criteria that really matters for us in terms of continuous funding and world's appreciation of us. We conduct a number of analyses. So around a third something, around 35%, as I said earlier, would be considered entrepreneurs. Around 50% have a leadership position. Out of the entrepreneurs, maybe 40 something percent are actually women. So there's a large percentage. We are quite a feminine type of school, I would argue. So when last time we did a research, we had an interesting question, and that concerned, we were very curious about how, so for instance, when I say about this, about finding values, what you stand for in life, what is your direction, how could we translate that to see, do we deliver on these things? We asked a few different types of questions. And one was, to what extent do you live your life according to the values you have? And to what extent are you pursuing a life of purpose according the way you define it. And the results here were very, very unexpected. Because we had a very, very high deliverance on those. That people felt that they lived very close to the values that they would like to see in their life, and in a similar fashion, how to pursue the purpose that they think is the correct one, which does not correspond with economical output. Meaning that many of our students do not foresee a life of economical benefit, or that they will make a lot of money. We have a number of students that decides that they want to live a life outside classical career, which is actually a growing number, ironically. If you look at it from the last 10 years, more and more people, when we look at how much money do they earn, some people earn a lot more, so it balances out. But if you look at the individual data, there are individuals that earn simply too little, I would argue, that they would be able to sustain a healthy life. And that is purpose, on purpose. Yes, but this was maybe not this was not the question you asked.
Yeah, well, I have several follow-ups. Yeah, well, the aspect that I really admire is that, like the principle that you have to be prepared for several futures, right?
Yes.
And this is what you are addressing.
Yes.
Do you happen to know what would be the choice number 2 or 3 for your at the point when they are choosing which path to take?
So very often what happens, it depends also on which country they come from. If they say come from Denmark, they have a lavish support system. Meaning that very often they give themselves time to think. It has been an intense 3 years. I need to find my feet before I make any decisive choice. And very often this happens that they try a number of different things. People go traveling, maybe they take some small additional education, some maybe do a bit of a startup, maybe, but more than a third continues on their final project from the school. So whatever they graduated with, they bring that onwards. So that's actually quite a high number, and that is relatively stable up until 4 or 5 years later. Then you see a drop down, maybe 20–50%. So I think very often what they see is that they test a number of things. I wouldn't have data on you wanted to be entrepreneur, what are you going to do if you decide not to? We have never asked that question. But we know, for instance, that data is a bit older, but those people that did not become entrepreneurs but obtained a job, more than a third of those got a job that did not exist before they applied. And that perhaps tells you something about their ability to sell themselves, at least. And it maybe tells you something about how life is evolving in our society, that there are so many new things coming up. And there is an unmet demand for people that could propose something that they haven't tried before. Maybe that was part of the answer? Yes, yes.
I will give all that.
Any other questions?
Or maybe thoughts from what you heard?
Reactions?
I can elaborate a little bit, because at least from my generation, many people went to work as consultants, or they end up in that field because we had a semester process consulting,
Right.
process leadership. But it's also that we have experienced so much about group work and dynamics and how to stay there and how to give feedback and what works and what doesn't work. So understanding the dynamics of the groups and teams and the struggles, we have quite a lot of knowledge. Like it was a, I don't know, mincing machine or the washing machine. That the experience we have is quite a lot. And if you think one day that I want to become a consultant and to collect such good workshops and levels of competence as what we got from KAOSPILOT, that would cost you way more. So.
But it's a good point. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the different sort of consultants, but if you think about those people that work with process and organizational development, I think by far we are the school per capita that have delivered the most consultants in Scandinavia. I think there are around 200 organizational consultants in Scandinavia that have been educated from the 3-year program. And as you point out, Arimas, what separates them a lot from the others, take if you study, for instance, organizational psychology, etc., it's their practical application. Because they have been doing it for so long time when they take the step out. So they don't need, they are sort of, they hit the ground running.